Hello and welcome to Reporters, the programme that brings you the very best of France 24 reporting from around the world. Today we're heading to Ivory Coast. Its political crisis is still playing out more than 2 months after the presidential election. Both the outgoing leader Laurent Gbagbo and opposition leader Alassane Ouattara have been sworn in as president. Ouattara is recognized by much of the international community as the rightful election winner, but he and his team are still holed up inside a luxury hotel guarded by UN soldiers. So far, much has been said of the country's two governments, but what has life been like for the Ivorian people? How are they coping in these unprecedented circumstances? There are growing signs that the economy is suffering and that everyday life is becoming increasingly strained. Our reporters Catherine Norris-Trent and Willy Brasiano went to meet ordinary people in and around the main city of Abidjan.
In recent weeks, this neighbourhood has been the scene of deadly clashes between protesters and police. Outsiders don't come here unaccompanied. So we're introduced by our driver, Jabi, a local. This is Abobo, one of the most densely populated and dangerous areas of Abidjan. It's also a stronghold of Alassane Ouattara, recognised by the UN as president. Here, residents defy Laurent Gbagbo and his forces. We've come to their neighbourhood forum, known as the Grand. Now, more than ever, the talk here is about politics.
At a given moment, people have got to realize that there's only one winner, and that winner is Alassane Ouattara.
There's going to be a wind of change blowing over Ivory Coast, and we'll have a new president.
But how have these young men become so opposed to Laurent Gbagbo? They're decried in parts of the Ivorian press as violent yobs who attack police. But many are highly qualified and struggling to find work. They're disaffected, disappointed by the government.
In the beginning, I was attracted to Gbagbo's ideas back when he wanted to embrace democracy and give Ivory Coast proper state institutions. But if you start that, you have to finish the job. I've been let down. There's no work, there's nothing. All these guys here are qualified, but they just come and sit here every day. They've got nothing to do.
Makito is 30 years old and studied industrial chemistry, but his career was cut short by civil war, and now he gives private lessons at home to feed his family. For him, the most important thing right now is real change.
We will watch for the next 5 years, and if Alassane Ouattara hasn't been able to succeed within 5 years, then he can't stay. Ivory Coast isn't someone's personal domain. It doesn't belong to one person.
Makito is something of a leader for the group, but voicing his opinions comes at a price. Today, his life is in danger. A few kilometres away, on the other side of town, is the district of Yopougon, a strongly pro-Gbagbo area. In the afternoon here, it's football practice. Again, to gain access, we've had to call on some local contacts who watch over us as we film. Yopougon is football crazy. Chelsea star Didier Drogba hailed from here. Elise dreams of following in his idol's footsteps.
I dream of playing for a European club if I had the chance.
No, he's not good enough for that.
There's no sense of insecurity here. The ground is a meeting point for backers of Laurent Gbagbo. School pupils are currently in training, but at other times the notorious Young Patriots rally on the pitch. That's the movement whose ranks are willing to die to defend Gbagbo. Around here, UN troops are viewed as invaders.
For us, the UN mission has failed. Our president, using diplomatic channels, has asked the UN to leave. We're free to decide. For example, if I came into your living room and you told me to get out, if I refused, that would be an abuse of your domestic rights.
Here, sovereignty and national pride are taken very seriously. After training, Elise and his friends head out for the evening. At the close of the day in Yopougon, the streets are still bustling. But back in Abobo, it's a different story. We catch up with Makito. His family are already gathered back at home, ahead of the nighttime curfew.
That's my nephew there. And here, this is my daughter. My daughter, she's called Malika. She's 4 years old.
From 9 p.m, Makito's wife and daughter shelter here with his older brother's family. But he has decided not to stay in Abobo at night. He's afraid he'll be hunted down by political enemies.
I'm afraid at night, but actually also during the day. I don't know what's waiting for us. There are a few police officers in the neighborhood who say to me, "Mukito, why'd you leave like that? If something happens to you, we are here. We'll deal with it. We'll mobilize."
Mobilized, ready for action. Every night local youths mount improvised barricades. After dark in Abobo can be a dangerous time. Raids and shootings are rife.
Some guys came here beating people up, militiamen, and we decided to get together in the neighborhood at night.
If they come back, what will you do?
That depends. Only God knows that. But we will be here to take them on.
Unarmed, these young men stand guard until 6 in the morning. Others don't even dare venture outside, terrified by recent violence.
A bullet came through the ceiling. There. You can see where it entered. Here it is. This is the bullet that came in. I had to come and stay here with her. She's traumatized. She's so afraid.
Back on the other side of town, fear seems a faraway concept. In Yopougon, for our football fans, nighttime means a meal and a drink with friends. And the party regularly carries on until the early hours.
We party every night, from Monday to Sunday. And people spend a lot of money. It's a good life. There's no problem here.
So apparently, money's no object for unemployed Elise and his friends. But how are other Ivorians coping financially with the crisis? To get an idea of the costs of everyday life, we head to Abidjan's main meat market, situated at the abattoir. It processes 75% of the country's meat. Most is sold on in bulk at industrial prices, but housewife Fadiga comes here to do her shopping.
I can buy at least 6 kilos here at the market. I can't do that. It's too expensive.
And before the crisis?
Before the crisis, it was around 1,500 francs per kilo or 700 francs per half kilo. Now it's gone up.
Meat prices here have risen by a third in the past 3 months. The reason why becomes clear just a few meters away. In the past, the abattoir's animal enclosure was packed full with cows. Now the quantity of livestock just isn't being delivered. The head of meat imports for the abattoir says traffic slowed from the north of the country and from Burkina Faso and Mali.
The country's divided in two, that's a problem. And then there's also what's just been happening, with people blocking the roads to delivery drivers. So all that means that farmers prefer to export elsewhere, where there are fewer problems.
Disruptions on the roads are threatening the whole of the sector. In fact, overall, the Ivorian economy is taking a hit in this post-election period. Business has stalled in the port of Abidjan. 80% of exporters suspended shipments of cocoa, the backbone of the country's revenue. Of all the 15 or so firms we contacted, all were unwilling to let us film. All except one. Chocodie Chocolate Factory, the only site in Ivory Coast which processes the raw cocoa beans.
This is the transit zone. This is where we carry out hygiene checks before entering the production zone.
The production zone is being run by a skeleton staff. Most of the machinery is covered with dust sheets. The owner puts on a brave face, but has to admit there are big logistical problems.
Buyers are reticent. We're not managing to get the clients or to export as we should. Shipping companies are worried about their boats. They're afraid they'll be tacked at sea. Conditions are difficult.
Orders are down. The factory's processing only a quarter of its foreign exports. But the boss isn't giving up hope. He's planning to fall back on the domestic market.
During this difficult time, we've given ourselves a goal, to speed up pace and to work even harder.
But in the current uncertain climate, will hard work be enough? Some businessmen see this crisis as the final straw. We drive to the beach resort of Grand Bassam, an hour from Abidjan, on the Atlantic coast. Before November's presidential election, this hotel owner said the picture was dismal and pinned all his hopes on a new political era. But instead, his business is in freefall.
Today's Friday, and normally at this time there are lots of people here at the swimming pool. The weekend's beginning, and so usually there are people in the pool and in the restaurant. But time's getting on, and there is no one.
And this right in the middle of high season. Foreign tour operators fled Ivory Coast several years back. The hotel's been relying on seminars and weekend business. But since the election, there's been virtually nothing.
Clean these windows. If we do have any clients, they'll at least see that it's clean.
Are there any bookings?
Bookings. I'll show you the charts. Look, nothing. Overall, our bookings are running at about 1 or 2%. There is no work for the staff. We've had to impose unpaid time off. That's the case for around 30 staff members. And now I'm taking steps to actually fire people. It's been 3 months now, so I'm having to lay off a large proportion of the staff. This was a quality hotel, but it's going to deteriorate. We won't be able to keep up.
And he's not alone. According to the Ivorian Confederation of Industry, business profits are slumping by up to 70%. In this climate of insecurity, how long will Ivorians be able to keep living in limbo? The country's paying dearly for the political deadlock. Many here just want to live and work in peace.
And for more now on the Ivorian crisis, we can turn to Catherine Norris-Trent, who just brought us that report. Now, Catherine, we just saw here that for some people, the security situation is still very tense indeed. Are people fearful at this stage?
Well, that does depend on who you ask. Obviously, there are some people, as we saw there, who say that despite all the recent security problems, all is now fine, and there are calmer periods in between incidences of violence. But I have to say there are widespread undercurrents of fear. A lot of people that do seem very afraid indeed. Some were even afraid to talk to us, afraid to contribute in any way to this report. They were fearful of violent reprisals for talking to us. In fact, a couple of people who we filmed with, and actually filmed with them anonymously with their faces hidden, afterwards they contacted us asking us to withdraw their testimony, their witness statements, and they said they were too afraid of what would happen to them and their families if it was broadcast. And they were talking about wanting to leave Ivory Coast, fleeing the country because of the security situation and also because of the economy. And notably, it was interesting how difficult it was to get people to talk about the economy suffering. Very, very few people in business want to be seen overtly saying that times are difficult. And they're afraid, they said, of knock-on effects both for their businesses and even for family members.
Let's get a little bit more about the final point that you were making there. Now, many analysts say that the economy is key during the Ivorian crisis. What do people make of this on the ground? How long can the Ivorian economy keep going, seeing the present circumstances?
Well, there are many pressures which are building on the economy. As we saw, there are logistical problems such as ambushes on the road, which are halting or diminishing road deliveries, and then there's also the ports, some of which are more or less frozen, and that's obviously impacting the all-important cocoa sector. Ivory Coast supplies around 40% of the world's cocoa bean supply, and it has been said that whoever controls that industry really controls the Ivory Coast economy, so that's key. There are also other more complex issues under the surface at the moment, such as cash flow, liquidity. How long can employers keep on paying people's wages, for example? I mean, there has been a power struggle going on around the banking sector, notably the West African Central Bank, which is the regional bank which Ivory Coast is a member. Now, Laurent Gbagbo's team no longer officially have control of that in terms of access to the safe and to the IT systems. So there's an issue about reserves, cash reserves. How long will money supplies hold up? And that could have a real heavy economic impact. And the cost of living, as we saw, is also rising regarding food prices. And people are warning of spiralling inflation now.
Just very, very briefly here towards the end, how hopeful are people that this crisis will actually be resolved?
Well, people are expressing frustration that it's been drawn out for so long. People on both sides of the political spectrum really saying they pinned all their hopes in this election for a fresh political start. There's been turmoil in Ivory Coast over the past decade, and they pinned their hopes on this election for a fresh start. And now many people feeling really quite defeated, saying this is the final straw.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Catherine Norris-Trent. Unfortunately, we've run out of time there. Thank you very much indeed to you as well for watching, and stay with us here at France 24.